My name is Will. I will be your new instructor for the next 8 weeks for Python and then 4 weeks for algorithms and projects and algorithms. I'm really excited to be with you guys. I love Python. It's also my favorite language out there. I've been with Coding Dojo for about 3.5 years now in just various roles. I've worked on the data science side. I've worked on our cloud architecture side um, as an instructor. I also am a product of Coding Dojo. Years and years ago, I learned how to code. I did the full-time program, left, and worked for some companies, was a dev for a company, and worked in other, kind of aspects of the industry, worked for a company called Twilio. So I love tech. I came back because I love teaching. It is actually a way, like there's a passion of mine. Burnout is a thing in tech, but teaching is something that I really love. Seeing you guys and everybody have that aha moment, but also just being transparent. I come from like nonprofit world. I don't have a degree in tech. I do have a degree, but it's not in tech. So I kind of was like, man, I'm stuck. I don't know what I'm doing with my life, where I can go, and learning how to code changed my life forever. Opened up opportunities, both financially, both from the career. Like it has done so much for me. And so I'm really passionate about helping people learn and break into tech because I think it's very doable. Doesn't matter if you have a degree or not, as long as you can work hard and you can kind of get that understanding. It's very, very, very doable. I've seen it change I've taught over 1,000 students, and I've seen it change a lot of lives. So I'm really excited to be with you guys, but obviously I am no Rob. I do not have a cool animal sidekick. Unfortunately, I'll think of one, but also that's Rob's thing. So, yeah, I get to do that. I am pretty antiquated when it comes to coding in the sense of I actually launched this Flask program here at Coding Dojo. So kind of old school there. Pretty excited about it as well. So if you guys ever have any questions on kind of the cloud architecture stuff or ideas in tech, I try to always share a lot for that. So I always try to share and give you guys as much of a heads up, especially in this weird kind of realm of season of tech. I'd love to help and help you guys have lots of connections in the tech industry as well. So want to help you guys in any way that I can. That is what my job is, and that's what I get to do for a living, which is amazing. Okay, we'll get started. We're about 7 minutes over. I do try to be also wary of your time, so I try to be exactly, on time. I might go 1 to 4 minutes over, but try not to do anything above that because we're all busy. So, okay, Python week 2, or sorry, week 8, day 2. Really fun, really get to just jump in and see some code. It's nice because I've been teaching the MERN stack for a long time, and my other class that's in Python's at the beginning. So this was fun to kind of just jump back in and do that. So really excited to do that. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. You have a discussion question due Sunday, and you have a core assignment. Now your core assignment, just a heads up, is the most difficult assignment probably of the course. Just being blunt with you, Ninja Gold can be a challenge. It can be a little bit of a pain in the butt. So give yourself ample time for that. Make sure that if you are kind of starting that assignment, or just now starting that, I would kind of get going because it can be challenging. Dojo Hall is open. I'm available. So if you have any questions, obviously, please feel free to ask those. Cool. I guess before we get started, are there any questions for me? Or obviously, if anybody wants to say something nice about Rob, you guys can put that in the chat, or feel free to come off mute. Happy to do that. I think he deserves the world. So anything you guys need or have questions on for me.
Yeah, for the calendar that we all have, are we just going to keep running off of that? We're going
Yep,
to get a new
everything. Yeah, exactly. Great
calendar,
question,
or
Gregory. Yep, everything will run off the same thing. And so the only thing that's different, obviously, is the Zoom room, but you guys made it here, so I trust that. But everything else, Discord's going to stay the same. From my understanding, everything should be okay. Now, obviously, things can change tomorrow. We think it should be fine, but if there's an issue, I'll let you guys know via email. Class calendar is going to stay the same. Discord channel is going to stay the same. It's just going to be me teaching comparative to Rob. You'll also see on the class calendar that, let me actually pull that up. You'll see that there's now a playlist part 2. There should be a, yeah. So there's a playlist part 2. So these will be all of my videos, and then Rob is still part 1. Those should still be there. If they're not, they're still on the platform. So you still have access to all of the recordings as well. And I have changed this one-on-one to myself and obviously our lecture link. But yeah, everything stays the same. I will put the lecture links and office hours / algo links here, just like Rob does. Everything will stay the same from that perspective.
I'm sorry. If you mentioned it already, the one-on-ones as well. Scheduling one-on-ones with you.
Yeah. So that
That's
schedule's
updated.
that's up here. Yep, that's updated. If you want to schedule a one-on-one with me, you're welcome to. Usually what we like, or usually what we encourage, is obviously try via Discord and then try via Dojo Hall. And then if it's an actual question on material, if then you still don't understand, feel free to do a one-on-one with me. My encouragement is that when you do that, just in the what are you struggling with, make sure you do fill that out. That's not really, I mean, it's for us to give us an update, but the idea is that whenever you are in a development role and you need help from a senior dev or a mid-tier dev, something like that, you need to be able to articulate what you're struggling with, right? You need to be in an email saying, hey, here's what I've tried, here's my issue. That's kind of our ability, or our attempt, sorry, not ability. It's our attempt to kind of get you guys that practice of being able to explain what your issue is. Same thing with Discord, being able to say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. This is what I've tried. Here's my code. Because then it helps us, A, be prepared, but then B, it sort of helps you, or else your senior dev's going to get real frustrated when you just, I need help. Like, okay, with what? Help me understand. So that's all I ask, is just fill that out well. But yeah, you're welcome to do that. And obviously, if it's anything with like career stuff or anything of that nature, you don't have to like go to Discord or go to Dojo Hall or anything. Feel free to just come schedule a one-on-one with me. Lots of students who like to do that. So great questions, Gregory. Anything else, friends? I just want to point out, I know that this is a weird transition, and I'm really sorry that you guys have to deal with this. It's not fun. I'm excited and want to teach, and really excited to kind of follow in Rob, and he's told me so many good things about you guys in this class specifically. So just want to thank you guys for your patience as I adjust. Seems like I shot a little too far for the algorithm at the beginning of the day, but thank you guys for just as I adjust to you and you adjust to me. Hopefully I can try to fill some of the shoes of Rob. But yeah, just want to say thank you guys, and I'm really excited to work with all of you. So, okay, let's jump in. We're talking about Flask, and from my understanding, you guys went over session and sort of the idea of session at the beginning, and kind of how to get information from forums. Is that correct? Last week? Cool. Great. So we are going to keep going. Ninja Gold is, I'm in the wrong Flask. Cool. Ninja Gold is a challenging assignment that really has you clicking buttons, and each button you click is going to garner some piece of information or some amount of gold, right? So 10 to 20, 5 to 10, 2 to 5, and 0 to 50, right? And so you can find gold, and then you're going to have some sort of process or some sort of method that's going to take in or process or do some sort of algorithmic functionality, and then you will output or print what happened, right? And you can keep track of your gold here. So we're going to build something sort of similar, much more elementary, but we're going to build something sort of similar to really kind of make sure that you guys have everything you need before this happens. So I haven't built anything yet. I did want to ask, or I like to personally kind of build alongside of you guys, because I feel like it helps even at the beginning of Flask, which we're sort of there, just kind of helps you guys reinforce everything that you need to do. I don't really go off of templates. I know Rob has snippets, which is awesome. And I also will, as we get into it, I'll use ChatGPT quite a bit because I'm a terrible typer and I misspell something. And you guys have probably all been there where you see an error already that an instructor makes and you're like, that's not going to work. Instructors don't see it because we're humans. We go, our code doesn't run. And we're like, wait, why is our code not running? And it's just sort of a waste of everybody's time because you saw it. So ChatGPT does that for us. So I do write with that. If that is an issue, please, feel free to, kind of let me know, say, hey, this is really kind of hindering my education. Another thing with that is, if you guys have any sort of, I learn better by visuals, I learn better by XYZ, seeing the product first, and then, seeing what we're going to build and then building it, that helps. I can always try to integrate that into my teaching and my teaching style. Okay. So I am going to jump in here and I'm going to call this our Flask counter. And this is going to be our project. Now, within my project, I'm going to have really two main things. Can anybody tell me what those are? Two main things just from my project level, looking down.
You're going to have your
server.py.
Server.py.
Yep. Server.py. Great job. And what else am I going to have?
Templates.
Yeah, what goes in my templates?
HTML.
Exactly. Yep. So I'm going to create an index.html as well. Great. So what we're wanting to create, let me just actually spin up what we're going to create here. Cool. So we can create this today, where we're going to have a counter and we're going to be able to count up, we're going to be able to count down. We're going to be able to reset the count down to 0. Something super simple. And if we have time, we'll go on maybe some random, just to kind of help you guys with that. So this is what we're building today. So let's go ahead and start building it. Would you guys like to start in the index.html, or where do you guys think we should start?
Server.py.
Server.py. Okay. I'm going to turn this off real quick. What are some fundamental things I have to do? Can I just start and run this right now, or is there something else I need to do?
Oh, we have to install Flask.
Yeah, exactly. How do I do that?
Terminal.
From Flask.
Even before that,
PLP,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, so pip, oops. I say pip env.
Install Flask.
Yeah, exactly. Anybody tell me what a environment variable does? Or not environment variable, a virtual environment. What does that do for us? Anybody know?
Mimic a physical environment.
Yeah. Yeah, right. It allows us to encapsulate all of our tools for our project. I sort of like to think about it like this. I like to think about every project as like a hike. And I'm not a hiker, so I'm not like, if you're not a hiker, you're still going to understand this. If let's say we're hikers, I could have one big backpack that had all of my hiking gear in it, right? That had my ice picks and my snowshoes. It had my jackets. It had my water. It had all of my stuff in it. That would be equivalent to if we just downloaded everything on our normal environment, right? Just like our computer, like globally downloaded everything. But if I'm hiking in Sedona, Arizona, does it make sense to bring the same gear that I would need if I was going to go hike Mount Everest?
No.
No, right? What would happen is I'm kind of lugging all of this material I'm never going to use. Same sort of idea with virtual environments. I like to think about every project like a hike, and my virtual environment is my backpack. I am just packing the tools I need for that specific hike because I'm not going to bring ice shoes to Sedona, Arizona in the same way that I'm not going to bring, flip-flops or sandals to Mount Everest. Right. And so what a virtual environment does is it allows me to encapsulate and bring only the things that I need in that specific project, in that specific hike, if you will. So that way I'm not lugging a bunch and creating and sort of bloating my entire environment. Does that make sense? Cool. So I've created my virtual environment. I say pip env shell. Now I've activated that. Cool. So now from here, I can go from, I think Gregory was saying it, from Flask, import Flask. Now I'm going to need Flask. What are some other things that I might need?
Render template.
Render template. Yeah.
Session.
Session. And there's one more.
Request. Redirect.
Redirect. Yeah, exactly. Good job. Cool. Now I'm also going to do just a little bit of setup, right? So where I say app Flask
Last name.
under name. And then I'm going to kind of like at the end, I say if dunder name equals dunder main. And I say app.debug or app.run, sorry.
Run. Debug port.
Debug,
Debug.
it's
port
true.
two.
And then because I'm on a Mac and my port 5000 is taken, I'm gonna actually change the port that I run this on. So I'm gonna say port equals 5001. Oops, 5001. This is just when I say localhost, I'm gonna say 5001 versus versus me saying 5000. That's just because I'm on a Mac. If you want to keep it, if you're on a Windows, you don't have to do this. But Mac you do unless you change something and I didn't want to change it. So cool. We're all set up there. My environment's running. I'm going to keep that down there. Now there's one more little piece I'm going to need when I'm dealing with session. Or dealing with this
Key.
app really. Anybody
Person
remember what?
key.
Secret key. Yeah, exactly.
Secret key, yeah.
App.secret key. And what do you guys think we should do this? Okay, we'll do long live coding cow. That's our secret key. Okay, so this is all set up. Now I will typically want to create a method. For my home route. It's kind of where I will typically start, right? What do I mean by home route? What does that mean?
Your homepage.
Yeah, exactly, right? Just kind of the slash, right? When you go to my localhost 5000, that slash. So I can say app.route.
And bedrock.
Yeah. And I put in my actual route. And
Return.
I could go ahead.
No.
No, go ahead, Tenzin.
Okay, just putting the return. Render template.
Not a return quite yet because I need my function, right?
Okay.
So I'm going to say def index. Right? That's my index route. That's kind of my home. Because I'm going to have an index.html. And just like you said, I could return render template. Now I've got to pass in my template. It's going to be index.html. Now I haven't built that yet, but this will work, right? Anybody have questions? Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, just real quick.
Yeah.
I see in the terminal the file name is within parentheses. Mine doesn't always do that for whatever reason, but it works. Why is that?
Great question. This is saying, do you have a Windows or a Mac?
Windows.
Windows. I'm not super Windows fluent if I'm being transparent. There's kind of two things. Either A, I don't know if you're using command prompt or PowerShell, but sometimes maybe it just might not show, and maybe that's like a bug feature. The other thing is that maybe you installed everything globally, kind of like what we're saying with the big main backpack. And so though your environment's not installed, Flask is. And so whenever you're going to run it, it's still able to grab that. That could be the other thing. So maybe you have a big environment where you just globally installed Flask.
Okay.
But this indicates that my environment is running, right? I have my backpack with me. Cool. Okay, so this is what we're trying to build, right? We're trying to build this counter and all this. So let's go ahead and build that. Do you guys have you guys worked with Bootstrap at all?
A little bit.
A little bit.
On the video.
Yeah.
tutorial.
Okay. I'm a big proponent of Bootstrap because you can make your project look really nice, really simply. So here's the Bootstrap link in case anybody's following along. I've got a quick, like a shortcut key on mine, so that's how I was able to just grab it. But here's the Bootstrap right there. And we just had that in as a link. And so now I can handle that and deal with that. So when I'm dealing with Bootstrap, usually you always want to put everything in something like a container, right? Some sort of element that is my container, and because that's what helps it be dynamic and that's what helps it sort of have my 12 columns. So I'm going to create a new div with a class of container by just saying dot container. By default, if I just say dot container, that's going to create a div element with the class of container. So if I do this, you can see now I've got this div with a class container. Now that is not unique to just divs. I can do that with anything. So if I said something like a p dot container, oh, I think it was on my. Give me a second. So it's a p dot container. It's going to create a p tag with that class. I can do that with any element, h1, all that stuff. But right now I'm just going to say dot container. If I don't put anything, the default param is a div. And so now we have that in there. Cool. And I'm going to create an h1 that says counter. I'm just kind of doing the setup, so I'm going a little quick. I promise when we get to the actual functionality, we'll slow down a little bit. Cool. Now, I've got 3 buttons here that are going to do 3 separate things. And if we're even looking at this, we can see that we have a submit form, submit form, submit form, submit form. Each button in itself or each area has its own form, right? And so what I can do is I can say form dot, and that's MT3. That's a point of 3 on the margin of the top of that element. Now, when I have an action, does anybody know what this action takes me to? What does this action mean here?
Is it a method or post?
Yeah, it's saying, hey, when this form is submitted, I want you to take this information to a specific method, right? And if we're looking here, I've got really 3, count up, count down, and reset that I need to create. I haven't created those yet. But I can say count up has a class, and then it needs one more thing. It needs one more thing within my form for it to work because I'm sending information. In order for it to receive that information, what do I need to put? What type of request is this
Value?
going to be?
Is it a value?
The get,
It's not a GET request because I'm sending something. Great question or great kind of thought, Braylon. It's not value either. It is, Liam put it, it's a post request. So I say that it's a method. Remember, anytime I'm giving something, I'm giving information, and any form is always going to be a post request. So I'm going to say method equals, and then I can just put post here. Another sort of trick you can do, and we'll do this for the second one, is I could just say form, go down to post here, and then it's automatically going to put that for me. Either one.
Does post have to be capitalized or could it be
It could be lowercase.
lowercase like that?
Yeah. Cool. So within my form, I am just going to have a button. Button. I'm adding some classes just from Bootstrap. I'm adding multiple, and if you saw, if I want to add multiple classes, I just separate them by a dot. Cool. And this is going to say count up. Okay. So we've got this. We've got this button. Now I feel like we've coded a lot. And so I want to make sure that this gets working, or at least we can visualize it. And then we can kind of, I want to visualize it and then we can get with the working. There's a fun statement that our coworker Caden has is code a little, test a lot. So we've coded quite a bit. So let's go ahead. Now, if I do this, actually, let's just comment this out and we can test it immediately. Oop. So I'm gonna comment that out. We have this, so this should render everything. If I say Python 3, server.py. Oh. Okay. If I come here and I refresh, we've got nothing here for localhost 5001. Your request, the URL was not on the server. So let's see, index.html, index.html. I'm thinking I might have made a mistake with my environment, virtual environment. Or 5001. Because that should pull up my index.html. Rob, do you see any issues right now? 404, not found.
The app, line 8, the decorator. At app.route.
Oh yeah, that's it.
The app symbol.
Thank you. Cool. Thanks, Rob. Cool. So we are able to grab this. Great. Now we can go to my index.html and let's just build out one button first. And then we will build out the other. Build out the other after. Okay. So I've got this button called count up that goes to this action of count up. So let's go ahead. I'm going to bring these side by side. This anymore. Let's go ahead and build that out. So I'm going to say app.route. And what am I going to put here in my app.route?
Count up.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I'm going to put exactly what I put here. Now this should actually be that. So I'm now going to just come here. I'm going to say at count up. And there's another piece of information I need to put because this is not just a GET request, but what kind of request is this?
Method. Post.
It's a yeah, exactly. So I have to put my method, right? I have to put my method within my server.py. And because that's a separate argument, I need a comma. I say method equals. And here I'm going to say post. Cool. I'm telling my app route, hey, expect a post request from here, right? If I didn't have that, it's going to say that this is not allowed. Cool. So I'm going to call this def count up. This could be called anything we wanted. Count up makes sense. and we're not going to pass in any sort of environment variables here. Now, what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep track of a count, right? Some sort of value here. So I need to keep track of a number, of a numerical value. What is a tool that we can use within Python that you guys learned last week that helps us keep track regardless of what maybe HTML page that we're on? It's up here. One of these four.
The session.
Session, right? Can anybody tell me what session is? Remind me of what session is.
It's a cookie, the
Yeah.
use instance of being on the web page.
Exactly, right? And so it's a way that I can keep track of some information. And so that's what we're wanting to adjust and change. Now, when I first come here, what should my default count be?
0.
0.
0, right? And when I click this, what I want to do is I want to increase my session by just simply 1, right? So I'm going to say session of count. I'm just going to call this count. We can call it whatever we want. Call it unicorn, cupcake, doesn't matter. And then I'm going to say plus equals 1. So I'm going to increase my value for count plus 1. Cool. Now, after I do that, I want to navigate back to the main page. Is it, I'm seeing that there's some lag. Is anybody else getting lag? Or is that just Gregory?
Mine looks okay.
Okay. Okay. So I'm wanting to keep track. I'm increasing this. And then after I do this, I want to go back to my main page. How would I do that?
Use a redirect.
Yeah, redirect. Why do I redirect and not render? Why don't I just render this on this guy?
We'll keep the same session open.
Yeah. Well, yes, same session. But if I render this, if I do a render on a post request method, if I ever render that, what that does is if somebody repeats or refreshes their screen, let's say it does, like maybe our internet goes down or something, it's going to re-request that post request. Now you can think about it. Let's say that we ran a store, like an eBay or something, and somebody's trying to pay. They put their credit card in. We're taking their credit card information and we're going to do something with it, right? So they're giving, we have a post request form. If I render template and they're able to they click refresh, they're going to resubmit that. So we're going to have another payment. So one thing to know is you never, ever, ever render template on a post route. You always redirect. So we're going to return. Redirect. And then where am I going to go? I'm just going to go back here. Yep. Just going to go back to this route right here, which is then going to give me my index.html. So let's see. My site is down, which means my let's see. Let's read this error here. Invalid syntax. It's saying it got unexpected argument method. Ah, it is methods, not method. So that is what messed it up. Cool. So now this is running. We come back, we refresh. We see this count up. I'm clicking it. Okay, well, it's saying it key error count, saying it doesn't exist, right? I haven't created that. So I'm trying to add one to a piece of session that doesn't exist. Cool. Now, where do we think we want to create this? Do we want to create it in my count up?
HTML.
And not in our HTML. We'll show it in our HTML. Let's think about sessions going to be our backend side. Where do we think we want to create session and sort of establish account at the beginning? What route here? Yeah, exactly, Liam. Liam
Oh,
said,
in
wouldn't
home
we
route.
want to create it in this route right here? So that way it loads on visit. Yeah, exactly, we would. Now, if I were to say something like session count equals 0, let's see if that works. This is working. We refresh. Oh, let's go back, refresh. Okay, so I'm not getting an error. But let's see if it's doing anything. I'm gonna go ahead and print session count. And let's see what's happening. Because we're not visualizing it yet, right? Refresh. Ah, it's just going to 0. Even though I'm clicking count up. Why do you think it's staying at 0?
The function's not doing anything?
The function's doing something. But let's think about it. Let's kind of walk through what's happening. Upon getting to this route right here, it goes here, it sets this session count equal to 0, prints it, and gives us this index.html, right? Which we can visualize and see. On this index.html, we are clicking this button of count up. So we're going here and we're clicking the button. That button is taking us to this method of count up, where we are adding session, or adding to session, we're adding it by 1. And then we are redirecting back to this route, which it then does all of this information. So can anybody see the issue here? Now seeing how
Yeah,
it's
it
kind of
doesn't-
going?
It doesn't matter how many times you click the button, it'll always redirect back to the home page, which sets it back to 0.
Exactly. Because our home page sets it to 0, it doesn't matter. Now, if I were to print, let's test it here. Session count. Let's see if we would get some 1s. Refresh. Yep, we get a 1, and then you see it immediately goes back to 0. And that's because we're automatically setting this aside, or setting it back to 0 every single time. And so there's a cool little trick we can do that we're going to eventually take. This same ideology we're going to take to our full stack application when we're dealing with logged in people. If I try to do something, let's think about it. Let's say I'm on Facebook and I'm not logged in, but I try to go comment on a post. What happens?
It'll take you to login.
They'll take you to login, right? What do you think is happening under the hood there? Just from a very high level. You don't have to give me the actual code or anything.
Redirect.
Yeah, right. It's going to check to say, is this person logged in? And if they're not, let's go ahead and redirect them back to our login. Let's do some functionality. We can take that same idea and apply it to this. I can say if count not in session. Oops. Then let's go ahead and set it equal to 0. So we're going to check to say, do I already have this key of count? If I don't, let's set it equal to 0. But if I do, right, then it does not enter this if statement, and then it goes and it renders the template, and it leaves my session as is. So now with that change, let's go see. Refresh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we get here.
We have to write after the index HTML.
I'm sorry.
We have to write like count equals to session count. Over to
So-
the red. Yeah, after the
Yeah, so-
index HTML.
Oh, after that.
No.
I see what you're saying. Right here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we could do, well, it's
No,
only
in
going to,
return statement. I mean, in return statement after index HTML.
after this.
No, inside the bracket.
Right here.
After the no. In return statement, like after
Mhm.
index HTML, we put like a comma. Put like count equals to session count.
We could, or, well, we don't necessarily need to pass that in render because remember count is sort of our cookies, right? It's persistent. So what this does is it just says, hey, if it's not already in there, then let's set it equal to 0. So in the very first viewing of my web page, there's not going to be a count, right? So it's going to hit this. When it first does it, it's going to, oh, I don't have count. Let's go ahead and set it equal to 0. Then when my user goes and clicks this count up button, it comes to this method right here. It adds it to 1, we redirect, comes up here. We're going to hit this if count is not in session. Well, count is in session, right? We've already established that. So it does not reset it equal to 0. And it just goes on and does whatever it's supposed to do. So in this case, we could have printed, or we don't really need to do that because I want to visualize this, right? So what I can do is now that I know that this is working because we just tested and saw, okay, yep, it's keeping track of these numbers. It's not resetting it equal to 0. I want to be able to visualize that too. It's not, our people are not going to see our terminal. So they need to be able to see the actual session here. So I'm going to do .row and I'm going to say this is going to be a p tag, or maybe let's say an h3 says total count. And then I'm going to have a p tag that is just going to be my session. Now, remember when we are in our HTML, in order for it to read this Python code, I got to put it in double curly brackets. I see session dot count. I say session dot count. So now if I refresh, we get 4. Oh, that's awful. Okay, that's still terrible, but alas, here we are. But we can see 4. So if I click up, it goes to 5, to 6. If I refresh, it's okay, because we still have our session. And now I can add as many as I want, right? It's keeping track. Again, all we're doing is at the beginning, we're checking, is this even in session? If it's not, let's set it equal to 0. If it is, we're not touching it, right? The only thing that's touching it is this method right here that is increasing it by 1. Does that make sense? Because you put a 1 in the chat if that makes sense, or put a 0 if you're super confused. My wife's graduating law school, and one of the big things in law school is they get cold called, where the instructor will just randomly ask them a question, like in front of everybody, and it's the most stressful situation. And so I almost just did that to Jordan. Jordan, I almost got you, dude. I almost just cold called you. But one time my wife heard me teaching and came up and was like, do you cold call people? It's like, yeah, sometimes I just ask. She's like, you're a monster. How dare you? You don't know the stress and anxiety that puts on students. So I'll try not to do that unless, you're cool with it, then I'll do it. But cool. I'm going to pause here. Are there any questions on what we've done so far? Anything I can clarify? Anything I can bring up for you? Cool. So now that we have sort of this base functionality built, the next 2 portions are going to be fairly simple, right? We're going to decrease and then we're going to reset. So who can tell me what is the first step? We'll have this form here. What should I put here? What should we call it? Countdown, maybe?
Yeah.
I'll still put a. Okay. And then same sort of thing. I'm gonna say button dot btn. That's the bootstrap for button, and then btn danger makes it red. There's a bunch of different colors, so that just makes it red. I'm gonna say count down. Cool. So my HTML is ready. Now we said that it's gonna take it to this method of countdown, but we don't have that. So let's go ahead and build that. App.route. I'm gonna say slash countdown. Do I need to have methods post here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do, right? Because it is a post request. We say methods equals post. Perfect. And let's just call it countdown. That's fine. And then what am I gonna do here? Anybody have any ideas?
We're
Pretty
gonna
similar to what you
decrease.
have above. Session, and then bracket, count, then outside the
Yeah.
bracket. Minus equals 1.
Exactly. Spell it right.
Why did
Minus
they,
equals.
why did it say minus equals instead of just -1? Or just +1?
Yeah, so great question. This minus equals is the same thing as saying, it's just a shortcut for saying count equals session, or else we'd have to do it this way. -1. Minus equals 1 is the same way because we're saying, hey, we want to reset the value of session count to the current value -1. So instead of having to retype all that, because this will work if I did the same thing.
Okay.
It'll do the same thing. This is just a shortcut to say minus equals.
Right.
And what Python will do is it'll imply that this is what we mean versus just -1.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Great question. Let me put this above. Oops. Cool. Great. And like you said, that's all we have to do. Now, what am I going to do? Am I going to render template here, or what do you guys think?
Redirect.
Never
Yeah,
render
exactly.
template, return redirect.
Exactly. Rob's right. You guys are smart. Cool. So we redirect back here. Now, again, session's not impacted here. It's just in these two. So let's go ahead. My server's still running. We're counting up and we're counting down. Ayo, it's working. Perfect. Cool. Now, the last thing we need to do is we need to create a reset. So let's do the same thing. I'm just going to come down. Oops. If you do Shift Alt or Shift Option on your keyboard and then press down, it'll just copy that. That's that shortcut that I just did. See how I copied that? Copy the whole thing. And if I wanted to move it, you could just do Alt or Option and then up and down. That'll help you. It's a little bit keyboard shortcut for you, so you don't have to always do the same things. Okay. Should change this to reset. Reset. And then we'll change it to info maybe. I think it's info. Could be wrong. Let's see.
Yeah, info.
It is info. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go refresh it on my page yet because I don't have a reset. I guess I haven't called my method. Yeah. Oh, I called it countdown. Let's say reset. Perfect. So let's go ahead and build this. I'm gonna say app.route. Let's go to reset. Do I do a methods equals post?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always do it on a form.
And I have a question. So the
Yeah.
post always has to be all caps in the Flask?
Let's try it. I believe so, but let's try it. Doesn't hurt to try. Oh yeah, it already broke it. So I think so. Let's see. Oh, okay. Oh, it's because I haven't done this yet. So we'll try it here. So we'll reset. Now, there's a couple different ways we can reset. Go to the platform and we're handling resetting. I think it's on counter. Yeah. So there's a couple different things we can do. We can do session.clear, and that's going to clear all keys. Remember, session is just a dictionary of keys and values, right? So I can have multiple things in session at the same time. Now I can clear all of them. So I'm going to wipe out all my session by running this method of session.clear. Or I can say pop. And so what that does is that gets rid of the value or the entire session key value pair for whatever we passed in. So in this case, we called it count. We said session.pop count. That'll get rid of that. So there's really three ways we could do that. So I could say session.pop, and I pass in count. And this will get rid of that, and that'll totally clear out my session. Now, I'm not a super big fan unless you really need to clear the session, like somebody's leaving or logging out. That's definitely when you want to clear that session. What you could also do is maybe say session of count equals 0. Right? Because what's going to happen is either way, even if I pop count and then I redirect, return, redirect here. Let's say that I did this. What's going to happen? So I guess it doesn't matter, because what's going to happen is going to redirect to here, which is this method, and then what's it going to do? What's going to
Session.
check is count in session, right? And it's not, because we just killed it. We just got rid of it. So then it's automatically going to recreate it and set it equal to 0. So it kind of doesn't matter. This one's like a dealer's choice. I don't know if there's any advantage either way, whether you pop it or you just reset it equal to 0. Maybe from like a speed perspective, it might be better to just set it equal to 0 than popping. But that's on such a minute scale that it doesn't really, it's never going to matter. If you did either one, or even if you did clear for this, that's also going to work just fine. That resets it equal to 0. Let's try this. Let's see. We're going to test. Let's test, see if it works lowercase. Restarting server, that's fine. Refresh. Yep. Cool. So it does not always have to be capital. It could be lowercase and that works just fine. Are there any questions on what we've done tonight? Just as a recap, we have created some forms. Each form had a button. And each form or / button had some functionality to where we counted up, we counted down, or we reset all of that to our number or our count in session. So it was persistent. Graylin, I see you raise your hand. What's up?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the terminology down in my head. So we created a button, but
Mhm.
behind that button is a form. Why are we calling it a form instead of just a button?
It is because we need to send we're sending a post request. So we put that in, we bundle that within a form.
That goes in the form. Okay, the button is
Mhm.
just a visual.
Yeah, the button's just a visual, basically a way for them to click. If we would have
Okay.
put an A tag in the form and they clicked on that, that would have done the same thing.
Okay.
Same sort of idea. Yeah, great question. The form is just a way that we can pass that information. So great question. Are there any other questions? Any other questions for what we did? Now, there's one thing I want to just let you guys know, and that's math.random Python. And so there is a way that we can just get random numbers or random integers. So in Ninja Gold, you can see that we've got random values from 10 to 20 or from 5 to 10, right? Well, there's this rand int. We have to import random. And then we use rand int, and we pass in the two values that I want to go in between. So if I were to say something like import random, instead of +1, I said random dot rand int, and maybe I said 5 comma 10. Let's see what happens. It's still active, still running. Come here, I refresh. But now I got 6, 6, 5, 8, 8, 9. You can see it doesn't go above 10, but it's within those random numbers. And so just want to let you guys know that this is also, this is what you will use. Probably asked if I keep clicking, what happens? It'll just add to it. Just randomly every time, it'll add just random numbers. It doesn't go down by 1. It'll only be random numbers between 5 and 10. Great question, though. But you'll want to use this for Ninja Gold. Are there any questions on anything we talked about, friends? Talked about a lot today. Anything you need from me?
Well, you were my instructor from my first course, and did a great job because I don't really get it right away, so I'm more visual. So
Yeah.
if you kind of keep it like you have been, that'll help me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can add in more visualizations as well. Yeah, I remember your Graylin, so that's awesome. Yeah, happy to. And again, if anybody that was joined later, if there's anything I can do to help you, if you learn in a specific way, I know like one student was like, hey, it's hard for me to, when you say we're going to create a counter, I don't know what that means. But if you build it ahead of time and then I can visualize it, it really helps me when I know what we're striving to build. So it's like, oh, cool, I can do that. So if there's anything like that that really will help you guys, please feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to assist and happy to help you in any way. That's my job, and that's what I love to do. So
Sure.
any
Thank you,
other
Will.
questions, friends? Yeah, thank you. Sorry, we're 3 minutes over.
Great, thanks for that link.
Yeah, of course.
Oh,
Thank
no
you.
problem.